Hi, welcome to Control Talk Now for the week ending May 8th, 2016. My name is Eric Stromquist, and I am joined as usual by my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, Kenny Smyers from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And what do Kenny and I do on the weekends? What do we do on this video cast and podcast? We talk all things smart building control. So with that, Kenny, welcome to the show. Big dog.
Thank you very much, Eric. I always appreciate those overwhelming introductions because that gets me pumped up and makes me want to say something smart right off the bat and I'll just choke it up. But
well, talking about smart, we got halfway through the show before I realized I had the recorder turned off. So this is take 2.
Yeah, it is. And I forget everything I said. It's a beautiful day here in Pittsburgh. It's my favorite time of the year. We have football starting up the camp, mini camps for the rookies. We got baseball in full flurry. We play the Washington Caps tonight in hockey. It's just a lot going on. And then my wife and I are doing some of the home ec stuff, hanging pictures and getting things finally settled in. And
you got that cast off. Now you get back to the honey-do list, huh?
Yeah.
Because for about a month and a half there, you were able to say, I can't hang pictures, right? Couldn't do any of those chores. Now you're having to pay for it, right, buddy?
That's true. But, I'm kind of excited because I'm getting the strength back in my arm and range ability. I went through physical therapy 2 times this week. And, the last one was kind of exciting because I'm getting my extension, my range ability. I can move my arm again and do everything with my wrist now, getting some strength there. So it was a journey there, but still need to keep it keep it cool. Don't try to overlift or anything, but I'm looking forward to getting outside and golfing and just getting more physical. So.
No, I hear you, buddy. I hear you. And, it's alleged that you are like the arm wrestling champion of the greater Pittsburgh area, that the only person that might have a chance of beating you is your brother, Tom. So I'm looking at this thinking to our audience, if you, like us, are going to be at the Niagara Summit coming up here in about a week or two, you might have a window here where you just might be able to take the man, the myth, the legend in arm wrestling, but make sure it's his right arm, not his left arm, because he'll beat you with his left arm.
It's comedy hour. I'll tell you, I did have a couple of strong friends that were really, really strong, arm wrestlers, but the guy that really amazed me, he wasn't the biggest or the strongest. He just had a technique, and he'd twist your wrist, and it was fun. They had all those competitions. Whatever happened to that? I used to have that on TV. Remember arm wrestling on every Saturday? I think
it's a politically incorrect sport now.
Really?
I just made that up. I don't know.
Oh, I was going to say, because it's still political season. We talk about seasons. I'm not going to ask what your thoughts are because I think
I'm going to vote for the first candidate that speaks out on light litter, which we'll talk about later in the show. But hey, Kenny, before we get to that, I want to say a special shout out to Pat Marcella, M&M Controls. He gave me this cool hat, and if you are a viewer or listener, if you send us swag, we'll wear it, especially me. I'll wear anything,
Well, and I'd like to say thanks to Honeywell Steve Sundberg, I got this at the CTN. And
you got to sit up a little bit so we can see it. See the Honeywell logo. Hang on. Let me do it. Hang on. I'm not seeing it, buddy. Oh, there it is. The big red H. Okay, gotcha. Cool. Well, Pat and M&M Controls are out of the Baltimore, Maryland area, and they do a fantastic job, Kenny, with controls. They're members of CGNA. Pat's been around the industry for a while. A great guy. He shares something in common with me and you, but that big birthday. We all the three of us turned 40 this year. So that 4-0
Well, congratulations,
birthday.
Pat. And they got a great operation down there. I visited Pat once or twice in the nice area. I used to live down in D.C. area, Silver Spring, Maryland, for a while, so I was familiar where Pat operates out of, and it's a growing area, robust. That's what's happening, the D.C. area.
Yeah, I think it is, buddy. I think it is. So listen, you were talking off air a little bit about a really cool thing. As you know, we are always trying to attract younger people into our industry. We think this is a key component of the industry, what we got to do. And one of our other fellow distributors, you were telling me that they did something pretty cool.
Well, RHI out of North Dakota, Fargo, we do business with them, and they sent a very interesting packet of, one of our current trends, of course, is young guns and the absence of technically qualified people for our industry, and how do we get people involved and interested and involved and actually come through the stages, going from the apprenticeships and the journey to being full-fledged building automation specialists, massive systems integrators, and the trades, of course. But we got this neat little thing from RHI where it's a heating and ventilation, air conditioning, refrigeration technology extension program from North Dakota State College of Sciences. And they're using the contractors to get people involved. It says, do you know someone looking for a challenging and rewarding career? The hardest career in the coolest program, North Dakota State College of Sciences. So I really love seeing stuff like this, and that's why it's so important for us to share it, because maybe we get more colleges and more technical schools to take advantage of social media, take advantage of use the contracting and distributing partnerships out there to help recruit more people, and then steer them into a great vocational choice. Because it says, and we've put in successively last two Control Talk Nows that we have an understaffing, epidemic level of understaffing. And we have 60% of the people presently operating as a facility manager, as a systems integrator, as a sales engineer, as a customer support. In our industry, 60% of them are going to retire by the year 2022. So we are looking at a bad problem getting worse. And so we need more attention, more vehicles, more opportunities to get young talent involved in our industry. And this is just another one, but they want to send flyers out to your customers to spread the news, so you can copy this and repost it, retransmit it. They'll give you more information sheets to talk about the costs, the length of the courses in the industries, and then the templates of potential contracts prospective employees and businesses could use to embark on a path that will bring you skilled technicians. So well done. It's a gentleman named Jeff Kukert, CMS, HVAC Refrigeration Technology Program, North Dakota State College of Science in Wapleton, North Dakota. Well done.
Well, I tell you what, Kenny, I think the other thing is, I know we've got some active technical schools here in Georgia as well. Our Tim Shambly teaches a lot of them after hours. And I think I think you're right. And I think the thing is the law of supply and demand. I mean, if you don't have enough people to fill these jobs, I mean, what I also hear you saying in a few years, that might be a very high paid job. And that's the irony. We're the fastest growing industry in North America. And then we have an inverse relationship. We have the least amount of people coming into our industry. So therefore, supply and demand means the people that are technically qualified and are in our industry in their youth or coming on, probably late 20s and 30s, they're going to look forward to a very, very promising career and very well paid career. One of the highest paid careers. Of course, you've got computer sciences, and you've got, anything to do with the maths and sciences are going to do real well. And, we always have to have, leadership, management people. But people always want to come out wearing the suit and tie at the end of a college, 4 years of college. It's just not going to happen anymore. Our whole world's evolving. So if we can steer some of that talent into these trades and then lure them into the building automation industry, the HVAC industry, not only are they going to be challenged using the new IoT things and challenge them mentally and physically, but they'll also be well compensated. No, I think you're right, Kenny. And I think we're going to reframe the whole thing. I think we're going to start the phrase right now, the building doctor. So that way when people say, what do you do? I'm a doctor, right? I take care of the buildings.
Remember the engineer, the sanitation engineer? That was one of the funniest. There's a couple of jokes about, we were engineers. We used to get criticized for being sales engineers because engineers from the ASHRAE level that are true PEs and went to college for 4 or 6 years, they were very touchy about who used the word engineers. But, we took the slow route. I mean, all of us have gone through many, many technical courses and probably would have an equivalent, base of an associate's degree. And I know everybody I know just about has an engineering degree, at least an associate's degree and above. Because
but Kenny, but to your point too, also, I mean, you talked about Germany. You lived, for our listeners who might not know, Kenny lived in Germany for many, many years.
9 years.
9 years. That's where he met his wife, Rita. But in Germany, the trades they're treated with a lot of respect, aren't they? Yeah,
it's just the whole cultural, the concept, the construct's different. They had their equivalent of Time magazine was Der Spiegel, and they had like 9 careers, pictures of air pilot aviation pilots, bankers, investment bankers and bankers. So they had different, I'm trying to think of the trades, how they were segregated. And then, marketing, sales. But the surprise was that it's called Klimaanlage on Heizung Technique. That's basically like a steam fitter. and they were third out of this 9 in this composite picture. That they were the third highest earning career field was basically the trade equivalent of like a steam fitter. And I think the pilot was number 2, and the investment bankers were number 1. And then from there it went down, so it was a surprise, but now it doesn't surprise me. In fact, everybody that is in the trades that have put a career in probably are making 6 figures and have great pension programs, have great medical benefits. And you put your time in. You earn your stripes. You don't just walk in and say, "Hi, I'm here. Start giving me I want a desk and a secretary." You start out working hard and you invest. But the investment, to me, it's look at this the return on your investment. If you invest 4 years in college, most kids expect to get a fair paying job and they get to pay off their loans, But what's happening is they're being betrayed. They're not getting a job. They're working in some kind of service industry, making a little bit above minimum wage, and they're going to pay off a big old college loan, and the parents co-sign for it. So it's just, I don't know. We're going to see a change. It's a bubble. It's breaking. I think
the best part,
it's dissipating.
Right. No, to completely get it, Kenny. And the best part is you don't have to wear a tie to work. So.
Well, you got to get up early, and you do work hard. I mean, but you learn something, and then there's some satisfaction after putting something in and making it work, and then drive by the building and you say, I'll put that in. That's my company started that up, and whatever, and you just develop a kind of like a culture of success, and you don't just come in. So you go through a process, and the process is one of the great processes of the trade schools. To be an electrician, a steam fitter, stationary engineer. There's just, so you have to know somebody, and it was esoteric. You get it through your grandfather was one, in the union, or your friend's father got you a start. But now we're seeing more avenues to come in, and I think we need to take some of those resources we use right now for the colleges and universities to teach people about history and English and everything that's important, but they don't come out with a job that they can use. So let's get more mechanically oriented. And let's fill the gaps in our needs, and like we got a fastest growing industry and a dwindling, population of people that can perform that work. So we got a big middle ground that we need a substantial number of people. And
I agree.
Post last week with the women, how they forgot, we're seeing thousands upon thousands of women coming into the trades now because they have to. We need manpower. We need people. So there's no reason why women can't fill that void too.
Got it, Kenny. Well, listen, speaking of keeping up with important stuff, the May issue of Automated Buildings is out. So how about introducing our first guest this week?
I'd love to. Our first guest is Mr. Ken Sinclair from Automated Buildings. He's the owner-editor. He's probably got one of the most solid resources in our industry, as far as 20 years and back, anything to do with the HVAC building automation industry, Ken has tracked it. And go to his website. And welcome to the show, Ken.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you, guys.
Well, it's awesome to have you here again. We appreciate it. The May issue is out at automatedbuildings.com. Tell us about the theme this month. You're IoT-centric.
It's basically a carryover from last month. We got good action on that. And I think it's on everybody's mind is how are we going to fit into this IoT, and how are we going to keep our business models rolling? So the other theme that keeps jumping up in the IoT is that open source is the way of the future. And I think the resistance to that is that bigger companies are buying other companies to try to avoid moving to open source. But I think open source will prevail in the future.
Very, very cool. Well, Kenny and I like to say we're in what we call a period called the smart building controls renaissance. I mean, it seems like everything is changing at a tremendously rapid pace. People are looking at doing things differently. Different players are coming into the market. You see it that way as well, Ken?
Very much so. That's a good name. That's a very good name. A renaissance. I've been always using revolutions and words like that, but a renaissance is a very good description because it is coming at us from every direction. That's the theme.
Ken, first of all, I got a kick out of the May theme, but then there were some pretty serious observations you had made regarding the, just down to it, and you put the nice links to it, that there were 4 companies bought out recently by major lighting companies and major companies, and I just want to know what your your thought of the impact. You answered that a little bit, but we can go a little deeper. But I used the Paul Revere analogy, and I got a really big kick out of your response, because we do consider you the Canadian messenger. I mean, you're keeping track on what's going on, and then you're giving that warning cry that things are changing, guys. But I think the biggest thing is that we still see a little bit of headwinds. People not jumping on the IoT train fully, and if they do, it's limited. They want to, like you mentioned, they keep the same. They're trying to avoid open source. So if I didn't ask too many questions there, firstly, the Canadian messenger. Do you see these trends alarming, that we got 4 companies being bought out by foreign entities, and how that's going to impact our business as usual?
I wouldn't say alarming particularly, but I think, as I always do, because I've been through all this stuff before, is it's kind of a repeat of history again. The last big open movement was probably the BACnet movement, and we saw exactly the same thing happening, as we saw major companies buying out other companies to get both actually IoT play and BACnet openness. Big example of that would be Honeywell Tritium acquisition, and many years ago. And so in that era, I think we're starting to see the same. The only thing I see that's a little different than what's happened in the past is typically our industry sort of bought from within. And the big play of the lighting industry actually starting to buy some of our players is fairly interesting as well. The global purchase, I think, is sort of an obvious trend that we can all get our minds around. Is no longer will the control industry be owned by North America. It's likely that it's going to be owned globally, at least certainly large pieces of it. So, and I think that trend, of course, has happened with Siemens and
very interesting
European companies as well. So I think that's kind of the big picture. So it's just the next renaissance. It's not a new renaissance. It's just the next renaissance.
Well, it seems to me, Ken, what makes this one so unique is because, like you say, change has been with us since the beginning of time. It seems like what makes this one sort of interesting is the rate, the speed at which the change is taking place. And I think because of that, as a teacher of mine once said, nothing is obvious to the uninformed. I mean, I think it's mandatory that, if you're in this industry, you better be keeping up with it, because the steamroller can hit you before you can even see it coming.
Yeah, the speed at which this is moving is certainly nothing we've ever seen in the industry before. And of course, that's because we're touching IT. And IT, of course, is in a tailspin too, because it's getting rearranged with mobile. Mobile was always a part of IoT, but it is actually becoming redefining IoT. And there's a whole generation that are starting to come that don't know what a PC is and don't really want to know.
Well, Ken, I had a kind of a curious thought. Do you think that these big companies like Acuity and GE can they really make it happen? Can they take the incredible building savvy that companies like Delta and Distech had, and really and truly incorporate that and come into the building space with new, revitalized energy? Do you think that's going to be successful?
Well, there's a bunch of plays going on, I think. I mean, these are good companies. Typically, I don't think they'll take them apart. I'm going back to my model of the Honeywell acquisition of Tritium. Tritium became a very successful company and basically extended its reach and became even more powerful under the Honeywell regime. And I think you'll probably see that happening with both Delta and Distech, that they will actually become stronger companies, but probably less. Another analogy might be the acquisition of ALC by Carrier. Again, made it a stronger company, basically increasing its reach and made it, I don't want to say socially acceptable, but that's not really the right word, but more mainline, more for the late adopters or the general masses, made these control companies. But what it tends to do is it tends to greatly reduce the innovation that occurs in all of these companies. So that's a concern. The other side of this thing that I think is huge is in all the conferences I've been at lately, this 330, 300 keeps coming up. And what that is in rough terms, we pay $3 a square foot for energy. We pay $30 a square foot for the facility rental. And we pay $300 a square foot for the people that are actually inside of these facilities. There's a strong shift in the lighting industry and our industry to chase the $300 rather than chasing the $3. And I think the reason is obvious. I believe that the lighting companies have almost an edge in chasing that 300 because lighting is much more of a touchy-feely thing that actually affects how the people perform. Certainly, temperature conditions are close in there, but the combining of them is huge. And that with big data to actually prove that that combined with social media and being able to put that all together and come up with some numbers and some new metrics that are going to allow us to prove to our clients that we can actually greatly improve the workspace and the productivity is huge and will unlock large amounts of money. So anyway, that's an interesting big picture trend.
Very, very cool, Ken. Well, speaking of trends, you were at Light Fair earlier in the month, and was that your first Light Fair? And what can you tell us about Light Fair?
That was my first Light Fair. I always wanted to go to one, and the opportunity of speaking at the CABA event, which was in town at the same time. So I took it in, and actually it was kind of neat. I got in on Sunday and walked the complete floor while it was being set up. And you get to see, I got to see the show twice, so that was a real eye opener. And then I walked it quickly Tuesday morning. Sorry, it was Monday, and I walked it, and then Tuesday morning was the actual when the show opened. The thing that just hits you on the head as you walk through it is actually every light bulb is now some version of an LED configuration. And basically they make configurations for retrofits that fit into existing fixtures. The other thing that was just immediately obvious that can hit you on the head is they now can control color. And they had some very dynamic displays of how that increased productivity. They would show you the same item with 5 or 6 different color renditions, and it's just truly amazing how that increases the task if you have the right color of light for the right task. And again, they started to go into these wheels of how humans interact with light and the whole complex situation and our actual relationship with light. Again, starting to chase that productivity piece. Of course, the other thing that's just huge is that lighting, especially in our buildings, used to always be high voltage. And of course, the LED, by definition, is low voltage and low voltage DC. And so the retrofits are basically some ways putting in a whole bunch of power supplies to get back to DC. It brings up another situation as to how this needs to be done. Do we have to have the electrical trades as heavily involved as they've been in the past? The other huge observation was the amount of heat they're taking out of the space. That dawned on me when there was 3 guys standing under a gigantic street light that was all LEDs, which in the old days would have probably put off a half a kilowatt of heat. they were all standing there quite comfortably, talking underneath it and poking it and prodding it. Just that kind of heat reduction in our building, like probably a tenth of the heat. Just another significant thing for us to interact with. The other one is that because these devices are low voltage, their control doesn't need to be like it was in the past, where we had a low voltage control which ran a relay and then switched to high voltage lights. The low voltage is closer to the source now. And we're starting to see light bulbs that have internal workings inside of them that basically look at lighting level to implement daylighting. We have light bulbs that can detect motion. We have light bulbs that can actually carry sound both ways. It's just a whole new world, because it's more like adapting sticking a cell phone beside your light bulb, or any part of that cell phone that you want. So there's just a giant shift there in what's happening. And then the most amazing thing I saw was by Emerge, they showed a total DC ceiling, which just captured my imagination. This DC ceiling had the actual T-bar was the conductor, 24 volts DC, and was installed by the roofing contractor, the ceiling contractor. And it then is connected as required in usually about 1,000 to 2,000 square foot grids. In a traditional retrofit, it could be fed from off the grid with a power supply clipped to the grid. If you want to add LED lights anywhere in the grid, you just drop them into the 2x2 grid and clip them to the DC bus. The bus also becomes a collection bus if, in fact, you have photovoltaics on the site. You can actually feed that into that same DC bus. You want to add cameras, you want to add Wi-Fi, your power supplies are there. If you want to add a VAV box, our VAV boxes would be DC voltage now. You would basically install your box, drop your line down to the DC ceiling, and go from there. So yeah, a lot of change, a lot of head shake. Brian Patterson with Emerge, he and I have been talking for a couple of years, and it was, it's early days a couple of years ago, but they actually have some projects like this, and this is not net zero, this is sub-zero, this is actual ceiling systems that can actually be net positive. So yeah.
Wow, Ken. So the DC ceiling, Ken, is that price competitive? I mean, is that a reality now? And if so, how does that get to the marketplace? Is that going to be? And we've often talked about needing to change the controls out of the lighting spec into a different part of the spec. Maybe we got to go the other way now. Maybe all the controls will come through the roofing spec.
Yeah, well, actually, they've done a great job of the roofing spec doesn't change very much. It's just like use this ceiling grid with the conductor in it. That's the end of your involvement. And then what they've done is they have like jumpers, so someone will decide how to jump that together. Yeah, very interesting concepts for sure. Actually, the good question, you say, will this be viable? Imagine the other side of this is if I'm doing a large LED retrofit, which makes sense because I'm basically cutting the energy down to, an eighth or 10th of what it is now. So obviously the payback is pretty attractive there. But if I do it, I've got this situation where I have all these high voltage lights. So if I have to convert them back to low voltage LED, I have to do that on a fixture basis. So I have to buy all of these conversion points. If in fact I start looking at things like this ceiling, then I can, then I eliminate all of that, and of course, all of the inefficiencies of each one of these power supplies. So there's sort of the cheap and nasty LED conversion, and then there's like the one that we should do it this way, and we pick up daylighting, we pick up occupancy sensing, and all of those other things. Now there's another play going on there too, other than the DC ceiling, of course, is folks like Cisco and their digital ceiling, and there's quite a few folks that are heading that direction. And what they're using is power over Ethernet, and so they're basically, you've got these Ethernet cables going around plugging into these fixtures, and the power for the LEDs is coming from that. That seems like it works, I guess, but there's some concerns about that. One is that you don't have the collection bus, and I loved what Brian called it. He called it the collection, connection, and distribution bus, the DC bus, and DC is that kind of a substance. It's very hard to add electricity to an AC bus, but it's not hard to add it or take it away from a DC bus, or it's also very easy to change the level of it. You don't need transformers and stuff. So anyway, lots of excitement happening. A radical change there, I guess, is the big change was the lighting industry changing from AC to DC because of LED. The observation I made in one of my comments is, can you imagine if Edison had invented the LED instead of the incandescent bulb, and also he had invented photovoltaics? We wouldn't have this damn electrical grid that controls the landscape and all of our cities, and everything would be standalone like your car, or if you didn't have enough solar or wind or whatever, you would then have some kind of alternate method of DC generation.
Ken, I took notes on that conversation because there's a couple of things that the analogy is very good, the clarifications are great. And keeping the pulse on the future. I think that what you're doing here is a lot of homework that benefits a lot of people. And I congratulate you on your May edition being, I think, your highest, your most visited edition yet. And I think it's because people now really, truly don't have the time and energy to go out and stay on top of all these trends and make sense of them. And you do a great job of filtering that information, and it's become probably the industry's, one of the most industries, or the number one guy to go to find out what's going on once a month with your automated building additions. So I appreciate it. I think I just learned a great deal. I feel
Me
like I've
too.
been at it.
Well done, Ken.
So I mean, it's a great service you're providing. I think the clarification too about the mothership staying meddling, doesn't meddle with the companies that they buy, and I think the comment you say, but it tends to reduce the innovation within those companies. I think all great stuff. And then the 300, I remember the first time I saw that. I think it was at Realcomm 2014, the Cisco guy from Canada was explaining, but I don't think I really understood the impact. But that's where the big orange or fruit to squeeze isn't at $300 per square foot for your personal costs, for the employee costs. That's just a great summary again. And so thank you very much.
Yeah, Ken, that's awesome stuff. Well, Ken, listen, question for you, and we're going to have to wind it down here, but sort of as a final question. One of the things, Kenny coined a phrase called light litter, and we've got a post later on in the show about it. We'll talk more about it. But in Canada, do you walk out sometimes and see a beautiful sunny day and there are parking lot lights on or outdoor lights on? Do you see that much in Canada?
We do see it, but I got to admit, coming from San Diego, I saw more of it down there. I was totally amazed that with their price of energy, I don't know. I'm not sure what that's about. I guess it's probably the triple net that they're able to pass the utility bill on to the folks that are renting the space, and it doesn't all fall back on them. Again, the decaying infrastructure. A lot of our infrastructure is a lot newer than yours.
Yeah.
Because Canada's a relatively new country. So I guess what sometimes I was looking at was a 1940 fixture that was probably fairly expensive to retrofit, and so they somehow deemed that it was better to stay on. but yeah, it's amazing how much light.
Well, Kenny did some research, Ken. It looked like it's about $2 billion in the U.S. alone, but I think it's global, maybe not to the extent it is in the U.S. But long story short, Kenny and I have formed an organization on Facebook called the Green Marines, where you can upload photos of light litter, okay? And then hopefully, the first step is awareness. But what we wanted to ask you sort of as a final question is, would you consider being the commander-in-chief of the Green Marines in Canada?
Sure.
All right. That's Commander Sinclair from now on. Now.
I did do another. You're the. You also what's that little on the back net? The rat pack. Ken's.
Oh
also
he's the back net. Yeah.
So he's got a lot of hats he's wearing. We keep dubbing you different names, but thanks so much for taking a few minutes to speak with us, Ken. As always, Ken Sinclair, automatedbuildings.com. Be sure to check the May issue out at that URL. Ken, thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks a lot, Ken.
All right, Kenny, good stuff from Ken Sinclair. All right, big dog, what we have up next?
Next, we had the Precon Smart Building Integrator Summit. Chart your next moves from a single building to a large portfolio. We know that there's in June 21st to the 24th, there's going to be an assembly of the most potent people in the high end of our business. So you're going to see the intersection of the top users, the top real estate folks are going to collide with the top vendors that provide the services that make everything move inside those buildings, that integrate everything from the lighting, the digital lighting. I mean, we're talking about some cool stuff. And we're talking about building automation, HVAC, IT, AV, multimedia, digital signage, lighting, security, and the industrial controls are all coming to the next level, where the intelligent buildings are designed and delivered. So if you're a traditional integrator, and most of us know how to handle one building, maybe two, or a small portfolio, maybe a university campus, maybe 20, 30 buildings. But this is about taking you to the next level and getting involved in the large coast-to-coast portfolios, because the people in this industry want to work with competent people. They want to work with the master systems integrators, and there's very few of them available.
They really are, Kenny, and it's going to be a great conference. We'll both be out there covering. I think you're moderating one of those.
I believe so. Yes,
systems, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, it's the place if you're an integrator where you can come learn what's going on with other integrators, but also rub elbows with potential customers. The real estate folks are there, and we're not touching about the real estate folks, but the real estate folks that are involved in smart buildings and smart building controls. So they're looking for master systems integrators. So you want to hear what they're looking for, get to know them. I mean, you can't miss on this. Same thing for the vendors. So it's going to be exciting times, Kenny. Can't wait for that.
It sure is. And nothing is static. So let's just review it. They're going to go over the different generations of smart building technologies. You have the past, which was the closed proprietary single systems. Then more contemporary ones that we're in part right now, we're in that final phase of it, is the open systems, becoming more and more conscientious of retrieving data and the functionality, but leveraging all those older systems. And then now we're looking to the future. And this is where I think really and truly our industry is going to be appealing to a lot more of the younger, smart-minded people that are using the new gadgets of IoT, because we're looking at the future IP-enabled intuitive GUIs, GUIs, analytic edge devices pumping data directly to the cloud. And it's kind of interesting because our next post is going to talk more and more about how technologies and its form footprints are giving new possibilities to previously not so smart devices now have an opportunity to become very smart. Some of them can actually do analytics right there at the edge.
Well, and Kenny and I really believe that we are in a phase that we like to call the smart buildings controls renaissance, because everything is changing. We're completely rethinking how we're doing building automation controls. There are new players coming in. There are new ideas. There's new ways of doing things. And so you'll learn about that at Ibicon Realcom. But to Kenny's point, our next post really identifies, I think, one of the players in the controls renaissance, our friend Alpert. So will you tell us a bit about that post, Kenny?
Sure. Alpert Elsmeiser is the managing director and partner of BASSG. And Alpert actually is a young gun from the old days. I mean, he started out in this industry in his early 20s, and now he's got, heck, he's probably got 15, 20 years in the business now, because I don't know how old he is, but I just know how involved he is. And he's always pushing new products. He's very big on he does the Sky Foundry, the analytics from Sky Foundry. He does all the J2 innovations, FinStack, graphics, I'm sure. And he sells those products as he'll put together a product for you. But now he's coming out with a product called the, I'll just read the post because I don't want to lose any of the things, but it says, when people say that we're living in a post-PC era, they mean that the personal computer time is being eclipsed by the center of IT universe by the smartphone. The smartphone was the catalyst that made everybody kind of jump. And now in the new era of Internet of Things, computing resources equivalent to a PC or a smartphone are being integrated into all sorts of equipment and devices. Now, for commercial buildings, this means that you're going to have there's a nice little diagram. I don't think you can see that, but I certainly can.
I've got it up, Kenny. I've got it posted for him.
Cool. And what it does is it shows you how now you can take, because of this computing power, you can put it at a controller out at the edge. And what it can do is it can do the filter process. It can do a lot of the information processing before it's sent to the cloud. So the cloud's getting a pure data, a refined data, a filtered data. So talks about the architecture, how you can decide which tasks are best performed locally by a device at the network's edge versus a remotely based cloud-hosted application. So within the IT world, you now have choices whether you use an edge device that basically can manage your stuff at a lower level, or send all the information up to the cloud. So cloud services, I guess now, there's some concerns that they're not cheap, they're formidable. There's concerns about the expense, the security, and what if you lose your connection to the cloud? How vulnerable are you to a catastrophic single point of failure? So you've got all these brilliant guys like Alper coming up with good ideas on how to minimize the impact and minimize the expense. So basically, it comes down to define core workflows such as detecting and diagnosing faults in equipment, responding to occupant hot cold calls, shifting energy loads to participate in demand response programs, and performing other building operations and management tasks at that local level versus going up into the cloud and come back down to the cloud and then implementing it after they've been processed in the cloud. So pretty cool stuff, I think.
Hey, Kenny, let me ask you a question. Regarding the pricing, do they typically charge by the amount of data you're putting up in the cloud? So
yeah, it's almost like your storage capacity. It's how much you're using, how much of the resources you use. We only have one or two things where we actually are literally doing the cloud thing. And I don't have any aggregated
but I guess what I'm getting at is I think that really supports your notion, or the notion that Alper has, that, I mean, if you can keep the stuff that's non-critical, you can do some of that processing before you send it up to the cloud, or maybe not send it all up to the cloud, that you're probably going to pay for this device very, very quickly, would be my guess.
Right, and what's really cool here is this is a ground-breaking opportunity. Alper's looking for distributors. Alper's looking for intelligent IoT specializing firms that could put this into place. He's looking for distribution channels across the country, in North America, Canada included. Alper will be he'll be at the next couple of shows. He'll be at the Summit, of course, and he'll be probably at that Realcomm IBCOM show. So if there's any way we can help you, introduce you to Alper, time well spent.
Yeah, we'd love to. Well, listen, we're endeavoring to get Alper back on the show. He's been on Control Talk now, and brilliant guy, so you definitely got to check him out. So we'll see him at the Summit next week, and hopefully get him on the show. So, hey, speaking of that, Kenny, I suspect, we may or may not have a show next week, depending on sort of what's going on. We might have a truncated version because we'll be out in New Orleans on Sunday. But we will be reporting from the Niagara Summit. So, all right, big dog, what we have up next?
Next we have functional devices. They made a nice little parody play on the election. And they say functional devices, a much simpler decision than picking a 2016 presidential primary candidate. And these guys, they speak softly but carry a big stick. Everybody in the accessory business uses functional devices. Either they're relay in a box, or the current transducers or current sensors, where you're just putting a nice little open or closed core around your loads and knowing when they're running and not. And they just sell zillions of them. But they also came up with a nice little application specific for the fan safety alarm circuit control. So basically, it's an alert fault application. It's called the RIBMNLB-1. I like the LB linebacker sort of thing, but that's not probably what they intended. But when the latch fault input is closed, the normal state, the relay is activated and the red LED is off. When the latch fault input opens, the relay deactivates, the red light turns on. So basically, you have a very, very simple, compact fan safety alarm circuit with a reset button. So again, it's another neat little product. They'll probably sell tons of them, sell them like toilet paper, and but they just keep pushing the stuff out. So like functional devices, you've got companies that just do it day in and day out. They provide those accessory components that make the job complete and give you those kind of like tools, where you don't have to do much thinking. You just go get me one of these, you put it in, it solves that problem, you move on to the next one. So they make all those connecting products that are very good, like functional devices. You have ACI, and some others that really do it well.
Well, we really do, Kenny. Well, but speaking of the election, again, I made a statement earlier in the show. I'm going to vote for the first person that helps solve this $2 billion a year problem that we have called light litter. And what is light litter? Well, light litter is what happens, and we see it all the time. As a matter of fact, I took a picture. I'm putting it up on the screen right now, where you have a beautiful sunny day and all the lights are on. And it's a $2 billion a year problem. It's easily solved. And Kenny, tell us about our next post, because this seems like some politician should jump on this and take care of it.
Just something like you said. When we talk about, things that we can do, low-hanging fruit, we always use that term, and we always talk about, the latest trends. We were really hot on this trail 2 years ago, and it was because we had some very strong lighting partners that we had Wattstopper, we had Mike from England that was into lighting with the Dolly lighting, telling us what's coming up with technology. Then we had kind of like the big giants started buying lighting up, and LED took over the Walmart spec using LED for outside lighting and inside lighting. Just kind of overwhelmed us with, they took the control of the reins. The little companies we were working with now were bought out by Big Fish. Wattstopper bought AIC. Brian Pike's company got incorporated into Wattstopper. They went into the distributed lighting management system, and so we lost the thread of the people that were really helping us spread the message. Well, it's coming back. One of the big trends now in 2016 is energy savings and environmentally sensitive. We're all developing a sensitivity for our environment, and you do that through programs and commitments and getting involved. And one of the simplest, easy ways is to reduce lighting that's not effective, that's not on when it shouldn't be on, basically, inside and outside. So we've got, people, Intermatic approached us, and Mike Welsh again from Dolly, from England, I'm sorry. He said, hooray, let's get this going. So we now know that these programs are they're getting the meat, they're getting some teeth, and we know now what the expenses are. We had said that things cost $2 billion, and I believe it was in excess of $2 billion, probably like 3.3. But what's going on now is we're getting quantifications of how much money you save by having those lights off. Each light now, when you drive by the street, you can look at it and you say that's probably a 7-cent waste per day or per hour. But the numbers that they talk about across the United States of America, we're talking about 14% of our energy being used for lighting, and that out of that 14%, a certain percentage of that is being wasted. Mostly by lights that aren't shielded, and that lights are on when they're not supposed to be on. So it's environmental responsibility requires energy efficiency and conservation. Installing quality outdoor lighting can cut energy use by 60 to 70% and save billions of dollars and cut our carbon emissions. Outdoor lighting should be fully shielded and direct down where it's needed, not into the sky, fully shielded fixtures. So basically the light bulb's on, all the lights going up above it. It's not shutting down on where it needs to be, So as we get more intelligent information and we get more people supporting us, light litter is going to become one of the biggest trends in 2016, and we're probably going to have to recognize some of the work that people are doing. So we hope everybody can get involved, help us learn more about it, help to spread the word so that we can reduce light litter and save energy and reduce our carbon footprint.
There you have it. So I am officially voting for Ken Smyers, the man, the myth, the legend, for president. He is my favorite guy because he mentioned light litter. And in this particular post and video, Pete Geisinger from Intermatic, which is a CGNA vendor, has got some great products that work really, really well. And Kenny, if you sort of look at in this particular example, by the way, Kenny and I formed a website called the Green Marines on Facebook. You can join it. We're encouraging people to upload their images of light litter because the first step to changing anything is obviously awareness. But this particular instance was a picture I took, and there was a whole parking lot full of these lights on. They were on in the middle of the day. I went in and talked to a couple of the tenants, and they go, yeah, this on during the day, but the lights are off at night. So obviously their time clock came out of calibration, or their photo cell came out of calibration. For those of us in the industry, we know that is a very easy fix, right? So I think there's an opportunity for all of us in the business to solve the problem and maybe at the same time pick some business up. So, we've reached out to those people and let them know they were unaware of it. So we might have a potential customer there. But if you're a service contractor out there, take the smartphone, take a picture, and then you can call the people. There's always a sign with the real estate people, and they appreciate it. They want to know. So, all right, Kenny Smyers. Well, I tell you what, buddy.
Well, Erica, just to your testament to that, but Mike Welsh, again, is one of the smartest knives or sharpest knives in the drawer. And, he made a comment on our post. I just wanted to recognize Mike because we're saying how we need people to do it. But he says for at least 7 years, he has spoken. He's been a prophet evangelist about lighting. When he visits somebody's facility office anywhere in the world, the sky is blue, the sun is shining, and as he enters the building, he looks around to see whether the lights, LED or not, are on at 100%. He says it's a criminal waste of energy and frankly reflects poorly on the business occupying the space in terms of the attention to detail. So whether I'm a potential client, supplier, or future employee or stakeholder to said occupying businesses, should I really be planning to do business or invest in my future with career with them if they can't effectively control the blindingly obvious?
I tell you what, I like it. Kenny, with your permission, I'd like to make Mike Welsh official commander of the forces in England of the Green Marines. And we got to get Mike back on the show too, buddy. I tell you what, I miss him a lot. He like you say, he's a truly great guy. So let's put a link in the post to his website so people can check that out. All right, Kenny, tell us about who we got coming up next, man.
Oh, I really enjoy doing this, Eric. This is one of my favorite folks in the business. It's Fred Gordy. He is an evangelist, a cybersecurity spokesman. He has done more work, selfless work, to promote cybersecurity in our industry than anybody I know. He's also introduced the concept of operational technology versus IT versus OT versus IT. So welcome to the show, Fred Gordy, Director of Cybersecurity at Intelligent Buildings LLC. Fred, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Fred.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to come on Control Trends, Control Talk again. It's been a little while. Missed you guys, but thank you for having me.
Oh, man, you're always welcome, Fred. Well, I tell you what, Kenny and I have sort of dubbed. We really feel like we are at the beginning of what Kenny I like to call the control trend and the controls, building automation controls, smart buildings renaissance, and so many things going on. And of course, with any great new technology or anything getting ramped up, there's always problems that are created. Kenny and I've always loved your work. I mean, I think that, you are we think you're the law, man, the long arm of the law, and you're making our buildings safer. So first of all, tell us about the new company and what you're doing there. And then we got questions for you.
Good. Well, I'm excited about this. I got an opportunity to move over to Intelligent Buildings with Tom and Rob, and those guys have embraced me, and they've embraced what I've been working on for the past 5 or 6 years, and also the extracurricular activities like Control Trends and Control Talk. They're all on board with that. Just a little quick thing about Intelligent Buildings. We serve as the customer advocate, that's what I like to call it. But basically, it's at a higher level where you're working with systems across all systems and not specifically just any particular system type, plus really genuinely putting smart buildings together and working with the FDD part of it, analytics, so on and so forth. And it's afforded me the opportunity to get to know some top Fortune 50 companies, and these guys are beginning to embrace the cybersecurity message, and that's encouraging, and it's allowing me to do more of that.
No, it's really cool. Well, we met Tom Shurtleff and Rob Murchison at many of the meetings, and I'll give my take on these guys because I think you guys serve an invaluable role. And as a customer advocate, what that really means to me is, in one of the first presentations I heard these guys make, Fred, was they talked about the fact that you got to get everybody on the same page, if and they got to get everybody aligned. And I think that's among one of the core competencies you guys have, because without alignment, you're just not going to be able to make things work, no matter how good the system is. So those guys are great at that. And I tell you what, dude, we've known you through a couple of reiterations. We started off with the kinder General or Fred Gordy. It was a little bit like we got this issue out there, and you're trying to get people's attention. It's a little bit like you're sort of pointing a little bit and maybe putting a little bit of warm water on the face, trying to wake them up. But understand that you've sort of begun an edict that forget the warm water, Ken. Forget the warm water, Fred. Get out the bucket of water. So cold water, right?
Cold water, splashing.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, the thing about it is everybody, I believe this sincerely, everybody realizes we have a problem. And I'm all about analogies, and sometimes it comes across, I like to try to put it in terms that people understand. And I don't know how else to say it, but, when we hear something on the news about, say, something bad happens in another neighborhood, it's robbery, it's a murder, that kind of thing, we always think that's sad, and we want to watch our homes. But then we also think, well, that was in another neighborhood. That's kind of the mentality with the cybersecurity thing, is everybody knows it's a problem, and they really don't want it to happen to them. But they feel like, I think sometimes what they do is they look at it like, well, why would anybody want to attack me? Well, another thing that came to, as I've been going through this journey, you may not be that big company, but you may be a third-party vendor to a big company, or a third-party vendor to a company that supplies a big company. And the bad guys are just looking for any avenue to get in. Now, they may not do anything to you, but hate to pick on the guys, but if we take Phasio, they use Phasio to get to target. So it's time for us to, this is my approach now, is I'm, as part of my role with Intelligent Buildings, but also just what I do is I'm using more and more tools to continually see how bad off we are. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. I'm able to see more now than I used to with the tools that I use. And so, yeah, my approach is going to be a little more aggressive now.
Well, that's really cool, Fred. Well, listen, off air, you mentioned the C word, and, Chinese. And so look, can you show us a couple of these tools and maybe a couple of things that you got going on?
Absolutely.
All right, let's take a look.
All right. So in this effort of searching for things, you guys have all heard me talk about Shodan, and Shodan is still a very viable tool. I use it. You can find a lot of things, but what I've found is there is a couple of other tools. The one you see here, I'll get to in just a moment, but there's another one called Census, and I'm going to have all this on Controltrends, so if people want to look at it a little more in detail, I'll show them. But while I was doing this, I have to give credit to my buddy Mark Peacock. He sent me an email one day and said, "Have you ever heard of Zuma?" And I hadn't, so I started doing a little research, and I found them. And I also found out that their origin is Chinese. Well, we've all heard the stories about, the Chinese government denies they're doing anything, but then we all see these things where it looks like things are originating from China. Excuse me. So I started using it as a tool as well, because if they're searching us, they're probably finding more things than what even Shodan and Census are finding. And my suspicions were true. For instance, not to pick on Niagara, but if you do a Shodan search for Niagara stuff, you'll see anywhere from 18,000 to 20,000 devices in the United States. When you do it on Zuma, you find 42,000 to 48,000. So what are they doing? I don't know, but they're finding more. So in my quest to find sites and let people know that they're being exposed, I found this site that you're looking at on the screen. Notice they have a nice little handy, and I pointed out, it says link to login page. You click that button, and it'll take you right to the login page. I've got it redacted or covered up, but that is a government defense contractor's web supervisor.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's
they
scary.
yes, and they make, let's just say, warfare devices. Okay. Now, also, you know, Tritium has done a good job about trying to beef up their security, and they have. But if you look there, it says, I've got it highlighted, 3.5.41. Well, I hope all of us remember that was the last of the very insecure versions of Niagara. So, so not only is it an exposed government defense contractor, but they're running a known vulnerable version. Now, this next page, I wanted to go back and see what Census had. And as I mentioned before, Census is another tool that I use. So I put that IP address in, and Census had some good information about it. But if you'll notice right under the Niagara Tritium Fox, it says has contractor info. What I mean by that is the station name is actually the defense contractor's name. All right, so I decided to see what else Census had on it. Down near the bottom under there where you see get view page. Now this is going to be a little shocking to you. This is what it yielded. And I couldn't get all of these screens on one page. This is, I know it looks like an eye chart, so I pointed out some things here. There's the server name, what operating system it's running. It's also got the RSA. That's the, if you're familiar with that, that's a security algorithm that people use, and it has it there. Has the host ID, but it also has the internal IP addresses of this system. And interestingly enough, it even lists who set up their wireless network, the vendor, and it gives the name and the email address of the guy that did it. Yeah, so, you know, the Chinese are hunting for stuff now actively. And real quick, just some other things that I found, if you want to take a look at this real quick. All right, this is a data center that I found. And we've all heard the term backdoor. Backdoor basically means there's a common username and password that everybody knows. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with the defense contractor. This is just some other things that I found. There's a Liebert Challenger, which we know is a crack unit. And I wanted to see if Liebert was still active, and it was. And then once I did that, now I can edit the set points inside the crack. And if I want to, I could run them up high enough, and because the temperature climb in a data center can cause servers to shut down, I could, just by changing set points, shut a data center down. Another thing that I found is there's a protocol called remote desktop. And what that does is that allows you to remote into a machine. Well, a server I found had remote desktop enabled. And I didn't do this. It was actually posted on Census, a screen capture of their remote desktop. And I've covered up 3 of the names that you see there because those are very descriptive names. Now, why does that matter? Well, if we've ever heard the term phishing or spear phishing, that means if I know somebody, spear phishing especially because it's a directed email, if I know your name and what company you work for, I can play around with some email addresses and send you an email that seems like it should be for you. And if you click a link, now I'm inside your system.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just a few things, and I'll go in detail on Controltrends.
Well, Fred, that is something else, and I tell you what, we will definitely post that on Controltrends. That's great stuff, Fred. Very, very alarming. And like I said, it doesn't seem like the quote unquote black hats are slowing down at all, are they?
No. not really.
So how can you help? How do you guys help? Talk about how intelligent buildings helps.
So what we do is, like if with a customer, we got a couple of things. We've got what's called a threat scorecard, and it's a quick snapshot and we'll do a quick assessment, and it's a very high level. It's not going to drill down into all the things that you need to do, but it's a kind of a temperature read real quick. It says, you take a look at it, we go through it with you really quick, and then you'll make it'll be eye-opening to you because it'll show you the deficiencies you have. Now, at that point, you can elect to do the things yourself, or if you want to take it to a much deeper level, then we step to that next level and we begin to map out how your network is set up, review things if you haven't engaged with your IT department, we help you engage in your IT department, and then we set up a strategy for you that puts up the iron curtain, so to speak.
Well, no, I can see why why Controltrends Awards gave Fred Gordy and Mark Peacock the Cybersecurity Award last year, because I'm taking notes again. The things that you're saying, Fred, here are scaring me, that we don't have a handle on it, and that the bad guys are getting a greater lead and we can't catch them. But this apathy that's still so prevalent, I think you need to use your cold water treatment, and it should go to the, we should have more focus on this, on Controltrends, Eric. I mean, I think that, our trends for 2016, cybersecurity is going to come right up again and be the #1 trend, because now you're seeing there's more tools to expose more sites, and Niagara's getting picked on, and yet we're going to a Niagara meeting. We need to infuse these people with fear that they're getting.
And one thing too is, when all of this first started, there was some, things being slung around, bad words, whatever you want to call it. But let's take a step back. Something that even if you're not an integrator, you would realize is, remember the years ago when there was Windows and Mac, and there was all of the Mac people, which I have a Mac, I've got Windows machines as well, but the Mac guys were saying all the stuff about Windows is vulnerable, so on and so forth. The reality is Windows had the largest share of market. So who are the bad guys going to go after? They're going to go after Windows. Well, I even use this term when I'm describing what is Niagara. Niagara is kind of like the Windows of integration. They have a pretty large footprint, whether it be Tritium, Schneider, whoever the case may be. There are Niagara systems out there. Honeywell has them. Johnson has them, so on and so forth. So who are they going to go after? They're going to go after Niagara because that's the most prevalent.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Fred, let me ask you a question. Is it possible, we do live streams from Stromquist and Company all the time. We would love to get you on. And if our Controltrends community is interested in this, please reach out in comments. Would love to have you come on, maybe do like a hour and a half lunch and learn, where people can interact with you via our live streaming software. Was that something you might be willing to do?
I'd love to do that. That would be awesome. Yes.
Awesome.
And I can show them some stuff in real time, how things are found and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Fred, I just want to review too that you've already given us so much information. If any of our Controltrends viewers and listeners are able to get the Controltrends and they Google Fred Gordy up on the toolbar, the search toolbar, you have given us seminal documents. Are you ready to react or pre-act? And you talk about checklists. You gave us a checklist that's extraordinarily focused on our end of the business stick. The operational technology, and that's the stuff that turns off and on versus databases that have customer information and files and financials and medical histories. We're talking about things like you just said that can turn off and on. You can take over a building and you can really create damage to it. It's time to react more like it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And you've said that you should already have your statements made, who to go to if we do get hacked. This is what we're going to say. So I just want to remind everybody that you're given this information. The seminal documents are there, and you're going to continue to post more to it. So what can we do to help get more involved?
The thing is we still got some maturity in the product lines and things. I will say that Link Springs has CyberPro, and that's proven to be a good piece of hardware to use. However, I don't know how to say it any plainer. The reality is you've got to take stock of yourself, your company, your people, and make your people, excuse me, let's don't use that term. Help your people learn that they are as much a part of IT as the IT guys are, because the whole is going to come through a person more times than not. I mean, you can put the walls up, the firewalls, you can put everything in place. You can have passwords that are 128 characters long. But if somebody is negligent and leaves that information around, then all of that stuff goes out the window. Nothing you can do with your IT. So it's people first, but then also almost parallel. The survey that we do, there's some questions that the answer, excuse me, it's multiple choice, and the answer is I don't know. Well, to me, that's the worst answer you can give. If you say, I don't have a firewall in place, or do you have a firewall in place, and you say yes, or you say no, well, no is not good. But if you say, I don't know, then what that tells me is you have no idea how your system's configured. You got to know that. You got to know how to defend. You got to know what your borders are so you can know how to defend them.
Well said, Fred.
Great.
Well, listen, buddy, we are going to have to hop off here for now, but thank you so much. Can we get you back on this show? We'd love to have you come on at least once a month. Keep us updated.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you, guys. I do appreciate the opportunity.
You bet. Our guest, Fred Gordy from intelligentbuildings.com. Check them out. Fred, thanks again, buddy. But Kenny, we are up against it, buddy. So listen, we're going to need to hop off here. A special thanks to Ken Sinclair. Make sure to check out the May issue of automatedbuildings.com. And to our good friend, Fred Gordy. Thank you so much, Fred. Great to catch up with you as well. So with that, Kenny Smyers, I will say we're in the midst of the smart buildings controls renaissance. We've got to eliminate light litter. So remember, be bold and stay in control.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers.